The news review is up next. Thank you for your company. Let's get into the daily graphic this morning. And Turkey earthquake, Achu's whereabouts are known. This is developing into a rather complicated and sad story. He was not found. Then we heard that he had been found. And now we hear he's actually not been found. We don't know his whereabouts because supposedly we had been told at a point that he had been recovered, he had been found with some injuries, and that he was in hospital getting treatment. But now the story just seems to be shifting the goalposts, leaving all of us with our hearts in our mouths, especially those closest to him. We'll bring you some details of that from page 16 of the Daily Graphic. But there's also downsized government, cut cost, Pentecostal and Charismatic Council says so, and they're becoming more vehement in their calls for this. There's also, and typical of our country, $85 million project abandoned for 12 years due to funding and litigation. $85 million, Ghana for $85 million. That's a lot of pay. Abandoned 12 years. At whose cost? You guess. I'll bring you details of that story. There's also continuous voter registration, easy to lay new CI before Parliament. That CI that has been a bone of contention between the minority and the majority. And Ghana close to 50% cocoa processing target. That's according to Kojo Nkrumah. In recent times, I think it was yesterday, we read a story where he was encouraging people to eat chocolate, use cocoa products. And I was also asking, fair call, but has he checked the prices of cocoa products, chocolate, on the market recently? The average Ghanaian, very average Ghanaian, can you afford a bar of chocolate? That's a question. And on the back page, there is 50 million Ghana cedi narcotics destroyed and mother-child killed in Bolga as truck and tricycle collide. I'll bring you details of those stories. But let's start from page 16. Two major stories there that I'd like us to take a look at. And here we go. Downsized government, cut cost. That's the Pentecostal and Charismatic Council saying so. So what exactly have they been saying? Let me bring you some details of that. The Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council has said there is an urgent need to downsize government's machinery and cut down on expenditure to build confidence to address the country's economic challenges. The ecumenical body also emphasized the importance of the government demonstrating a strong sense of burden sharing to encourage key bondholders to fully accept the domestic debt exchange program voluntarily to help the country make its debt sustainable. Quoting them, it says, this should include the government explicitly and verifiably cutting down on its expenditure, including reducing the size of government, among other areas. This is critical to encourage the buy-in of the public. A communique issued at the end of the GPCC's Conference of Heads of Churches and Organizations Extraordinary National Delegates Conference said. Now, the communique signed by the newly elected president of the GPCC, Apostle Eric Nyamiche, said it was the view of the 2023 CHCO that the economy of Ghana was currently, in dire straits, and that the government could not approach the resolution of the current economic situation in a business-as-usual manner. So that's the story there. It goes on to talk about the interest of citizenry and the state and providing that national forum for the financial sector. But let's go to Turkey for more news on that earthquake. Achu's whereabouts unknown, and it breaks my heart that we're still at this point where we do not know what exactly is going on with our brother. But to the details of the story. Frantic efforts are being made to locate the whereabouts of Ghanaian international football star Christian Achu following conflicting reports on whether he has been rescued or not from the rubble 4 days after being caught in the earthquake that hit Turkey and parts of Syria. While his agent, Nana Setre, is asking for prayers to locate where Achu is, the Ghana embassy in Turkey says it is working closely with rescue teams to locate the whereabouts of the Ghanaian winger almost 48 hours after he was reportedly rescued from the rubble. At the moment, The whereabouts of the player are not known, as both Ghana's ambassador to Turkey, Francisca Ashite Odunton, and officials of Achu's Turkish club Hatayspor say they have not located the hospital the player was reportedly sent to. Neither have they been able to establish contact with him. The NAS secretary revealed in a post on Twitter yesterday morning that the player had not been located. And quoting him, he writes, following yesterday's update from the club that Christian had been pulled out alive, we're yet to confirm his whereabouts. As you can imagine, this continues to be a devastating time for his family, and we are doing everything we can to locate Christian. Let's pray for his location and recovery, he said in his Twitter post. So those stories there, downsizing government and Achu's whereabouts still unknown. Our hearts, our prayers are with him because he is one who very passionately has donned our red, gold, green and black and represented us. And this, we just pray. We just pray and hope. It is really sad. But we've seen miracles in the past, and we're hoping that God will, excite us all with a miracle on his behalf. Let's also go to and look at this story in politics. Prosecute NDC Swami, youth organizer. I'm sure you may have followed that story. Let's get some details on that. The New Patriotic Party has called for the swift prosecution of Swami, constituency youth organizer of the NDC, Razak Kwampa, for inciting political violence in a viral video circulating on social media. The party said the move would serve as a deterrent to others who may be harboring similar intentions. The party also called on the NDC to disown and expel the youth organizer without delay. In the said video, Mr. Kwampa is alleged to have said the NDC had suffered a lot of violence at the hands of the MPP and that it was time the party responded in equal measure and urged the youth to do whatever they could to ensure that the NDC returned to power. The National Communications Director of the MPP, Richard Ahiagba, made the call at the maiden bi-weekly press updates instituted by the Communications Directorate of the party at the party's headquarters yesterday. Quoting him, he says, "We believe the NDC youth organizer did not speak in isolation or misspoke. He is clear-eyed. His remarks reflect the culture and ethos of the NDC. We expect the police and the courts to bring this Swami youth organizer to justice very quickly to deter others who might be harboring similar violent and delinquent thoughts in the NDC." Now, I listened to Richard Ahiagba and I reflect on what he says from two angles. First off, we have to get rid of this situation where especially the youth are used from both parties, the MPP and the NDC. I'm surprised he's painting a picture here because we've seen NPP as well in very dastardly acts. But whether it is the goose or the gander, it is wrong. So the NDC does it, the MPP does it. We must stem the tide of this. And if this is an allegation, if it is proven that this individual did this, compromising, so to speak, the security of our country, let the law have its way. Just as those 12, and some of them, I think about 4 of them have been apprehended now at the national delegates, is it conference or congress? I always get it mixed up, of the NDC. And some of them engaged in activities that were inimical to the process. The police has, nabbed about 4 of them, if I recall, and the law is taking its course. That is what must be done. What I do not like is the hypocrisy in this. And sometimes I listen to these party communicators. Well, he is the chief communicator of the party, Richard Ahiagba, saying this person, that is if he spoke, did not misspeak. He spoke clear-eyed and that it reflects the culture and ethos of the NDC. Need I remind some of these people about what happened some time back in a court of law where a justice of the court was attacked? Need I remind him about similar actions of party members, youth, in other situations? I don't think we need to go down that road or on that trajectory. All I'm saying is it is condemnable if proven to be true. And that is the law. That is the beauty of it. You must bring evidence. You must adduce evidence and show that someone actually did something. And then the law will take its course. So let's not just speak because we want to say something or because it is in the best interest of our party. What is the situation on the ground? Our foot soldiers still doing their thing. In the different constituencies, different parts of our country. We ought to nip that in the bud ahead of election 2024, whether they are NDC or MPP, whether they are green, white, black, and green, and white, or whether they are blue, white, and red. We need to nip it in the bud. That's not what we need. And especially, that's not what we need our youth being up to. I had an interaction yesterday after class in the evening with a gentleman who is close to those who walk the corridors of power. And trust me, we need fresh ideas, boisterous ideas from young people in leadership. But at the same time, and I keep saying, like Mo Ibrahim said, we keep electing these 60 plus, 70 plus, 80 plus year-old leaders into office. Where are they leading us? To the grave? Africa, that's what we do. Look at countries like France, Croatia, New Zealand, go to the Scandinavian countries, Sweden and the rest. How old are the leaders? 30-something, 40-something. And they are the advanced countries. And we are here, we've never elected a woman president. We don't elect young people into such office. I do not know what we're thinking, but if we want to think into the future, we need these young people at post. But the other side of the conversation is, I shudder because you speak to some of these young people and you see there's a danger in knowledge. Some of these young people are very smart and some of them are watching our very corrupt misleaders right now. And they are learning all the tricks from them and adding their smartness, their finesse. So imagine when some of these young ones come to power. They will do even worse. That is my fear. I pray for this country. And the NDC calls for pardon. The National Democratic Congress has made a passionate appeal to the Ghana Police Service to pardon its youth organizer for the Swami constituency, Razak Wampa, who was arrested yesterday and charged with offensive conduct. I'm just adding that as a snippet, an add-on to what I mentioned. In a statement issued by the NDC's communications officer, Sami Jemfi, the party stated that Mr. Kwampa had misspoken on a viral audio clip that bordered on possible reprisals to state-sponsored violence during elections. We have Bobby Banton joining the conversation. He's a lawyer and he joins us. Bobby, good morning.
Good morning, Ben. When I joined, I thought I was listening to Kwame Nkrumah or Kenneth Kaunda.
It's you know, this country, sometimes maybe it's on the back of the conversation I had with this person yesterday. I think about the country and sometimes I just get desperate, frustrated, but it is well. It is well. I don't know how long you've been following, but I've taken the story about Achu, whose whereabouts are still not clear. Then the call by the Pentecostal and Charismatic Council to downsize government, size of government, and cut cost. And then I was just looking at the NDC's youth organizer in Swami. I'm sure you followed that story. From a legal standpoint, what is your reading of what has happened? Have you seen the video?
I read or I heard you speak about the statement by Sami Jemfi. I think that it's commendable that at least you have the political party trying to let its youth know that even if these things are said in the heat of the political discourse or the campaign, which we will not deny the fact that both political parties have been guilty or will be guilty of such utterances, from Etiwa to all those that had come before, to what we have experienced in the last election. It should not be an official stand of the political party. It should not be seen to be okay, particularly when Parliament actually went a step further to pass a law, which the Vigilantism or something act, something like that.
The Vigilantism Act.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I am happy with the statement that Sami Jemfi has issued, and I hope that it will serve as a deterrent to other members of that political party and even the MPP that would want to think that they would have the backing of their leaders if they engage in such actions. I mean, Ghana, there's only one Ghana. We don't want to be another example of a country that was doing so well until there was a scramble for power which went out of control. And so every right-meaning Ghanaian should be able to condemn this without any political biases. And it's wrong if it's done by
I couldn't agree with you more, because that's exactly the point I was trying to make. Don't milk this for political gain, because both parties are culpable. You do this all the time. Rather, speak to the issue. Is there evidence to be adduced against the person? Did the person err? Sometimes the court can be merciful based on certain things, because sometimes utterances can be made, but you can see that clearly this person didn't have the intent of carrying it out. Maybe people get passionate. It's like a crime of passion. Sometimes there are concessions that are made because you see, oh, this person was in a certain state where the mind was not working properly. But to come out and make politics out of it is what, annoys me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That I do not expect that the MPP should try and make political meal out of this, because you would find that their members may have, at one instance or the other, made those comments. And so that is why I said I'm very happy that the
NDC is owning up to it.
NDC, yes, officially has made their stand. It's very commendable, and I hope that if the shoe is on the other foot, the MPP will be bold enough to also distance itself from such utterances if it comes out from the mouth of their followers.
Downsizing government, the call by the Pentecostal and Charismatic Council. What do you make of it, especially in light of the latest reshuffle? Only one person was reshuffled, really, but the replacement, the elevation, the reshuffle, so to speak, and still our numbers are hovering around the same point. I will keep saying this till something happens. In Malawi, they had about 31 ministers. Lazarus Chakwera brought it down recently to 20-something. What are we waiting for? People have said we can put together so many portfolios. We used to have youth and sports. How about sports and education? Some have said. Why have the differences between defense and interior? There are so many we can lump together. In fact, some propose we can have the regional ministers, and in fact, we can have cabinet ministers, about 16 of them, and they'll double as regional ministers. There are so many. And imagine if we cut even 50 or 60, it's about 110 right now. If we were even to downsize by 70 MPs, do you know what that would mean for the state's coffers in terms of fueling? I know it's not all of them who get fuel now, but in terms of fueling, in terms of all the other perks they get, in terms of their salaries, in terms of other utility allocations, in terms of ex gratia, how much we could save, Bobby. It's crazy.
Well, I think the root of that problem is the refusal by the state apparatus to enforce the provisions of the Political Parties Act. I've always said that when political parties are yearning for power or are clamoring for power, they get, should I say, funded or resourced by ways that are not regulated as the law has provided for. And so once they get this political power, they owe it a duty, whether they will admit or not, to find a way to repay these persons who have supported them when they were looking for political power.
Yeah.
And so it will always provide for creating job avenues in the terms of ministerial appointments or other quasi-state-sponsored positions. Let me put it that way, with all the largesse and the benefit that come from it. When the president took office, he said he justified the size of his government because he said he needed to do some work, and so he needed to focus on certain ministries or certain sectors of the economy. It's been almost 6 years since that has done. Obviously, the present economic situation of the country shows that whatever the government sought to do may not, with that large numbers, may not have yielded the results that he was expected, because from education, from food and agriculture, you cannot hold up to a tangible result. I mean, from where I sit,
right,
that we can specifically say that this result or this this result was as a result of the president dedicating a ministry or a minister to that sector. I have not seen any yet. And so if what you provided as the reason for the numbers in parliament, in government, are not being seen by the citizens,
right,
then why keep them? Especially when you come to us to ask us to let go of some of our legal rights because of our financial commitments, the bonds issue, all of those things. And we do not see a compensatory effort by the government to also reduce the expenditure. Because like you have stated, all these largesse, I do not have the figures off my head, but I'm sure that even if it will save the country 10% of its expenses annually, imagine what that 10% can do. It can be used to drill a borehole somewhere in my village.
I mean, the ex gratia alone, and we've seen the
Yeah,
figures at the end of 4 years, that is telling.
that's what I'm saying. That for me, I do not see any reason for this beyond an attempt to reward those that may have supported the political party both ways when they were in opposition. And if we start enforcing that law, where the parties must file their annual returns, must show their source of funding, what have you, and all those things, then everybody will be in check.
Right.
So that we regulate the funding, then they will not be under obligation to reward those that funded them. So I think that we should always look at the source of that problem and solve it. Other than that, we would have, once we elect the executives, and it's a constitutional provision, the president has a right to appoint as many ministers as he wants.
Exactly.
There's no constitutional limitation, and I think that is also a problem.
Let's take a look at this one. In fact, it's the biggest story today in the Daily Graphic. It's their banner headline. It breaks my heart, Bobby. $85 million project abandoned for 12 years due to funding and litigation. Now, it was billed as the country's most luxurious seafront gated community and a destination of choice for high net worth individuals. Reminds me of this place in Venezuela. Anyway, the 17-story La Beach Towers exuded promise of pampered privacy in a mystic Atlantic Ocean setting after an artist's impression of the project was unveiled in 2011. But nearly 12 years on, the highly anticipated sanctuary for luxury home lovers, which sits on a 7-acre seafront, is gradually deteriorating. The $85 million project, which was expected to be completed in 2013, is rotting away as building materials exposed to the sea breeze corrode and wear off. It was supposed to be a plush residential property comprising 64 apartments in all 4 towers, 4 penthouses, and sky villas. It is unclear why the project has halted, but sources say several years of litigation by the major shareholders held back the project, which had been fully sold out by the time it started shooting into the skyline along the La Beach Road. A past president of the Ghana Institution of Engineering, Magnus Kwashi, said a proper audit of the building should be done before work could resume on the project. Mr. Asari suggested that a structural integrity test should be conducted on the building. And by the way, Mr. Maxwell Asari is the head of the Infrastructure Institute in Accra. And he also said that when it was confirmed that the foundation of the project had been weakened, it ought to be pulled down. But the physical planning officer of the Ladade Kotopo Municipal Assembly, Anthony Mompi, refuted suggestions that the building could collapse due to structural integrity. So that is the situation there. But it's so reflective of what we see in our country in terms of governance. This also poses grave danger. I remember reading a similar story, Bobby, some time back. It had to do with this hotel also in the Tema area. I've just forgotten what the name of the hotel was. You may have stumbled upon the story. I think it was the Meridian Hotel. My director, Yao, bringing that to mind. And some of them are death traps. You see people without homes getting in there, sleeping. We don't want another, pardon my using this as an analogy, another Turkey earthquake in Ghana, so to speak. Your thoughts on this?
Well, it's the cost of litigation. When we were in law school, we were told in Chi that Manson de Esekru and Selo ni bottom, to which litigation only brings the state or the town to its knees, but fills the pocket of lawyers. It's sad. I mean, like you have said, it would have beautified the line. And as you spoke about it, I cast my mind across some of those projects. I readily thought of 2 around the airport area. One on the airport bypass,
right,
and one that was supposed to have a revolving restaurant.
Yes.
Also.
In fact, that was the first one that came to mind, around the SNIT office, right?
Yes, and those 2 I know are also in court, and so you'd see that. Well, It's a private enterprise. The state has no role to play in it.
Oh, there, yes, definitely.
Yes, the shareholders, for whatever reason, decide to let litigation take control over such an investment. At the end of the day, I was happy that they brought the angle of the municipal assembly, the engineers, the permit holders. And like you said, we should make sure that whatever happens, the state does not lose in terms of a building collapse, people being injured, and all of
And
those.
that's my point. If
Yeah.
this, God forbid, collapses, looking at the location, if let's say a road is affected, damaged, and people can't use it, if some private property suffers any damage, if some individuals die, then there's a problem. So the infrastructure people are there, the engineers are looking at it and all of that, which is all good. But in this country, we know we can do all of this and then we go to sleep again. So hopefully they do a good job. And if the structural integrity of the building has been compromised, it means, and if it requires being raised to the ground, or this is someone's investment, so you can't just talk about it like that. If some things must be done to keep the structure up, how are we going to go about it? If it must be raised to the ground for public safety, I mean, it must be done. We don't have to wait till disaster strikes.
Yeah, and I hope that by bringing, because I mean, it's the first time that I think the story is coming up like this, the media space. So I hope that the shareholders will take a cue and at least, do whatever they must do to make sure that the building sees completion. It's a beautiful project, and I just hope that it doesn't remain like this for forever.
I don't know what the process has got to in terms of court, but maybe, who knows, maybe ADR might work in this respect. People try it as an alternative. I don't know. But anyway, moving on from there, the Ghanaian Times newspaper, at investing in Africa mining in Daba, make Ghana your investment destination, Jinapo, to foreign investors in mining. That's the lands minister. Are you still missing after Turkey earthquake? That's the question. And Narcotics destroys cannabis worth 50 million Ghana cedis. And publication of COVID-19 expenditure audit premature. That's according to the AG. I want your take on these two, and I'll just take a quick swipe at the stories. The Attorney General, Godfrey Adame, has described the publication of the special audit on government's COVID-19 expenditure by the Auditor General as premature. He has demanded a withdrawal of the report from the public domain until debated and sanctioned by Parliament in line with constitutional requirement. Quote, a prior publication of the Auditor General's report completely undermines the purpose and meaning of Article 187, 5, and 6 of the Constitution and should not be encouraged. Consequently, I advise a withdrawal of the report on the government's COVID-19 transactions from your website before same has been debated by Parliament and considered by the appropriate committee of Parliament. I found this interesting based on technicalities. There's also on page 24, so you can just address both of them together. About 50,000 kilograms of cannabis with the street value of about 50 million Ghana cedis was yesterday destroyed by the Narcotics Control Commission. The exercise, which took place at the Bundase military training camp in the Ningo Prampram district of the Greater Accra region, also involved officials from the court, police, military environmental protection agency, Ghana Standards Authority, and international partners from Drug Enforcement Administration, National Crime Agency. The cannabis was seized from suspects between 2021 and January 2023 and destroyed following a court order. My only hope, and I'm not casting aspersions, my only hope is that all of it was burnt. Those two stories for your reflection, sir. You know, we've had, narcotics turned to kukunte in this country before. So, Ghana man, we all make steady. Your thoughts?
Well, when I hear stories of seized cannabis being burnt, and especially with that value, I ask myself, so couldn't the state have benefited from it?
That's an interesting angle.
Yeah, because there are some industries that use the cannabis.
True.
So if the state has seized it, 50 million Ghana cedis.
Right.
If it's sold at a reduced value to 40 million, 40 million Ghana cedis, the state finds an industry that buys cannabis for medicinal purposes. Why can't the state sell it? Unless maybe by the time the court maybe had stored it it had lost its medicinal value or something. But if we can come up with a policy that will let the state benefit from some of these things. So, for example, if a state seizes a property that was acquired from illegal trade, the state doesn't raise it down. The state applies it for
Exactly.
So why can't we find a use purpose when we want to go and burn 50? It's as if we are burning 50 million cedis cash.
And
I think that if they look hard enough, they will be able to find use for these things.
I think sometimes it's the mistrust in the system, just as I am not so. I mean, we should be able to get to the point where, you know, if they say 50,000 kilograms, it was exactly 50,000 kilograms. Recently, we had a report about one of the state agencies. I don't know whether it was customs or the GRA or something of the sort. And someone who was supposed to be in custody of some CFA, the money, Yamutu, the money had died, disappeared all of a sudden. So I think those are some of the challenges. But I am in agreement with you, because if it's going to be used, maybe we don't have those systems. I mean, there are drugs that use cannabinoids and others, you know, cannabis in different forms. And that is what maybe we should be exploiting. But even if not within our country, how about our region? And even if not here, even if it's going to cost us, let's say, $5 million to transport it to some other Western country, and we're going to rake in a lot of money on the back of it through legitimate means, because in the West, there are many uses of this, and they have it, some for recreational purposes, other for other purposes. Could we have done with it with some money into the state's kitty, maybe even to fund NACOC and its activities?
Exactly.
But the point is the mistrust. That is what I keep saying. We've not built a society on trust, so there'll be a lot of mistrust about where it ends up, how much it accrues, and all of that. Maybe they're just trying to avoid that.
Well, it's attempting to put together a policy and the right persons. I think that is a better way to solve the problem than just taking the lazy approach of say, let's ban it because we don't trust anybody. I mean, we believe that Ghanaians are highly resourced persons in terms of their knowledge and understanding. If we put the right structures, the right policies, and we are very conscious about it, we just don't have to play politics with it, I think,
Right.
and that's about it. And if we have a state entity that is resourced to do this, it should be transparent enough. Maybe have parliamentary oversight,
Right.
the Ministry of Defense, Foreign Affairs, Finance, put together such a policy. We should be able to make use of some of these monies.
We should be able to do that. Just as I also felt it was a bit absurd to be burning excavators. You see, same policy, mistrust in the system. So you apprehend someone delving in Galamsey. How much are these excavators? What damage has the person done to the environment by selling them or using them for something else that is of benefit to the state? At least we'll get something back. But in this instance, it goes up in flames and the state gets nothing. But we also know that excavators have grown wings and flown back to their owners. So you see, that's the mistrust in the system.
The state even ends up being ordered by a court to pay compensation for burning people's excavators. That was an eyesore. It was completely illegal and unnecessary. But
Bobby, we have just a minute, so let's do this. Daily Guide, it reflects some other stories we've taken a look at, but put down guns, Minister to Bawku Youth, that's on page 6. And Dominic Nitiwo, Minister for Defense, has appealed to the youth engaged in violent conflict in Bawku to cease using violence and lay down their weapons while soliciting the cooperation of members of parliament to promote peace in the area. According to him, over 30 people have died as a result of the Bawku conflict since December 2022, noting, quote, Bawku is not what we used to know 3 years ago. There's also Agrada dragged to court over nude pictures. And in the Finder newspaper, U.S. initiative to drive industry, Ghanaian startups in climate technology and innovation space to benefit. So Ghana's entrepreneurial and business landscape is set for a major boost thanks to a United States government support and partnership initiative. Dubbed Partnership Opportunity Delegations, an initiative of the U.S. Department of State's Office of Global Partnerships, a 16-member delegation made up of representatives of U.S. companies and organizations focused on climate technology and innovation is in Ghana to engage businesses, startups, and policymakers to understand Ghana's dynamic entrepreneurial potential, and delve deeper into partnerships and investment opportunities. I would have you reflect solely on the put down guns by the minister in some 30 seconds, and we can go, Bobby.
Well, the conflict in Bawku, it's very interesting. I have had the opportunity of spending some time in that part of the country, and they are very nice people. Very nice. I don't understand why or how. And then, whether we like it or not, if we take politics out of that conflict, it will be resolved in a day. And I think that we need both political parties to be very upfront and honest with each other and sit down to solve it. For me, it's as simple as that. Otherwise, we'll go around in circles. Yeah. If we take politics out of it, we can solve that problem.
And I perfectly understand what you're saying. But Bobby, thank you so much for doing us the honors this morning.
And before you go, I wanted to touch on the Auditor General. Just,
So you have 20 seconds, very briefly on that.
Okay, so I'll just read Article 1877, which the Auditor General always relies on. In the performance of his functions under this Constitution, the Auditor General shall not be subject to the direction or control of any other person.
How did I know you were going to go there? Bobby Manson, I think you've made your point. There's no need to even say anything about this. You've made your point.
That's all.
Yeah, that's it. We're a guy.
Thank you very much.
Bobby Manson is a lawyer. He joined us this morning. Exactly my thinking on this matter, but Bobby has said it for me. The news review is brought to you courtesy Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. We're offering free prostate screening and free female fertility screening. You can locate us in Accra, Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard, in Kumasi, Kronomabwe behind the Angel Educational Complex in Takrade, and Naji Estate in Tema Community 22, Techiman Hansua, Isiama in Enzema. Call us on 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Expect sports up next and hopefully some more detail on Christian Achu. We pray for him. Sports up next.